Hi, this is Joyce Pellino Crane. I'm the news director at WestfordCAT. I'm here today with State Senator Ed Kennedy, and we're going to just go over some of the great work that he's been doing in the State Senate. Hi, Senator. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you as well, Joyce. Thank you for inviting me on.
Love having you. We're going to make this a ritual, maybe every quarter or so.
Okay.
If you'll come, if you'll.
Absolutely. Sure.
Because we love having you. I know that you cover a diverse area, geographic area in this region. You represent Westford and Lowell, but also Chelmsford, Pepperell, Dunstable, Groton, and Tingsboro. Did I get that right?
Just about. I don't represent Chelmsford. Chelmsford is Senator Barrett.
Ah, thank you. Sorry, Senator Barrett out there, wherever you are. So would love for you to bring us up to date on your activities. I know you're very, very busy because we just discussed some of the things that you're doing. So can you enlighten us? Sure.
Let me just start with, I think Senate 2633 is a piece of legislation that that probably a lot of your board members would be interested in at WestfordCAT, and it has to do with streamlining the cable-related funds and PEG money that comes in. So instead of having to go through the town and then be reappropriated to the cable station, it can go in a more direct way. And that legislation came out of the committee that I sit on. I'm actually the vice chairman of community development and small business. It came out of that committee and is currently in rules. And it was filed originally by Senator Lovely from Salem. And I think it's a good piece of legislation. And I'm hoping I'm hoping we're able to get that done before the end of the year. As you know, the session has been extended, but we're doing everything like this with Zoom and over the telephone rather than in person. And it's been like that at the State House actually since March 10th. The State House has really just sort of been shut down to tours and everything else. And both the House and the Senate have, when they've been meeting in formal session, have done so via Zoom meetings or telephone meetings. And I expect that to go on for the rest of this calendar year anyways.
Yeah, it seems like it will. Yeah. PEG, I just wanted to let our viewers know that PEG stands for Public Education and Government, and the mission of community access television stations is to cover the various segments of society. Particularly at WestfordCAT, we focus on government recording. We are contractually obligated to record the select board and the school committee and the planning board. I think I've got that covered correctly. So would there be money coming toward being set aside for the community access TV stations, or what would the bill do for us?
Yes, it would be, but the money, instead of going to the municipality and then having to be appropriated to the cable station, would go in a more direct way to the cable station. So I think it just streamlines it, and I think it's probably better for everybody. But you know, in communities where there might be some disagreement between the municipality and the cable station, it probably would streamline that and take care of that. I just think overall it's a good piece of legislation, and make sure that the money is spent for what it's intended for, which is for the cable stations, and it's not diverted into something else.
Absolutely. Let's move on a little bit and talk about the transportation bond bill.
Yes, I'm pretty excited about the transportation bond bill for a couple of reasons. One is because I was able to get $100 million for the construction of the Rourke Bridge over the Merrimack into the bond bill. I'm hoping that, and I should say that I should point out to people listening to this that that is the Senate version. The transportation bond bill is currently in conference committee. So we're waiting for it to come out of conference committee, and then it would be voted on, whatever comes out of that. But I am very confident that that $100 million for the Rock Bridge will stay, which will mean that when the current study that's being done on the Rock Bridge is completed, we'll be able to just go right into the construction phase without there being any lag time or a lull. So I think that the transportation bond bill is something that the Commonwealth does about every 5 years. Mm-hmm. So if the money was not included in this bond bill, we might be waiting several years before we got construction money. $100 million for bridges. That's a lot of money. I can remember when the bridge was being proposed back in the 1980s. The estimated cost for the bridge at that time was $30 million, and that was $30 million with 2 access roads. One access road, which would go from the southern side of the bridge to Drum Hill, the Drum Hill Rotary, and the other side would go from the north side of the bridge to Mammoth Road in Dracut. And we were going to get all that for $30 million, but times have changed and years have gone by, and now it's a lot more expensive. But I do think that it's something that's sorely needed, and it's only going to get more expensive. So I'm pretty excited about that. But also in that transportation bond bill is $2 million for pedestrian safety improvements at Oak Hill Road, which I think is important too, and that's specifically for Westford. And these types of things are things that I work on with Representative Acero, who I have a great relationship with. He does a great job for the town of Westford and his district, and so I just wanted to mention that.
State Rep James Arcero has done great things for Westford, and I know you both work so well together. It's really very nice to see. And that Oak Hill Road intersection has improved enormously. That's where I do drive it to get to the station, so I do go through that quite often, and we appreciate the work being done there. And you're chair of Arts, Culture, and Tourism Committee?
Yes. Which has been somewhat challenging too, just because of the COVID-19 virus is just really killed the whole tourism industry in not just in Massachusetts, but everywhere. So that I have been part of a working group that's met, that was meeting weekly to try to, get that going or keep it as on life support at least until we came up with a vaccine. And I think that, it's going to take a lot of work to bring that back. It's a lot of it is related. If I could just as an example, out in Weston, Mass, you've got the Mocha Museum, you've got Jacob's Pillow and Tanglewood, which were all shut down. And because they're shut down for the summer and didn't have any season, that meant that the restaurants out there suffered, and that meant that the bed and breakfasts out there suffered, and so forth and so on. And the same thing has happened in Plymouth, for instance. They were expecting to have Plymouth 400. It's the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower landing, and they put years and a lot of money into planning a big time celebration for this year, and that's had to been put off. And so it's really been tough on the arts and tourism industry just altogether, but we'll bring it back. I guess related to that too is I earlier this year belonged to a restaurant commission, which was looking at the restaurant industry in Massachusetts as a whole and what we could do to improve that. And we were ready to come out with our final report in March. And then the virus has changed that whole industry around too. So that's going to be, that's a committee or a commission rather that will be able to keep on going. But now it will be the Restaurant Recovery Commission, and just instead of just the Restaurant Commission. But those areas of the economy have just been devastated. Not the only ones, but certainly I've been in tune with what's been happening there, and there's just there's hardly a good story anywhere. So anyways, we'll just have to keep our chin up and keep it going when we can.
And are we trying to, is Westford trying to get 2 new liquor licenses approved?
Yes, I've been doing that with Representative Acero as well. We have 2 bills actually. There's that are specific to Westford. One is would change the name for the Board of Selectmen from Board of Selectmen to the Select Board, and that's something that several other communities in the Commonwealth have done, and it's something that is a good idea. And so I'm hoping that that's passed the House, and I'm expecting it probably would pass the Senate maybe by next week. And then in addition to that, we have there's legislation to create 2 additional liquor licenses for Westford, which I think are going to be located for restaurants or eating and drinking establishments along 110. I think they're in a shopping center, but I'm not sure. You probably know better than I which ones, but I
can only guess.
So where they,
yeah.
But anyways, we've got those 2 pieces, and that's good. And also we have other bills that are also in conference as well. There's a bill on climate change, one on economic development, one on healthcare and police reform. And in the economic development bill is $100,000, which would be for economic development programs for the town of Westford. And then I think, let me see, one thing that I'm leaving out is what I do office hours in each of the towns, and generally they're at the library, usually in the evening, so that they're convenient for people. But what I have noticed in doing that is that the libraries are used a lot more than what you think. And I think of all the libraries in the district, the Westford Library is probably the most vibrant. I mean, whenever I've gone there, it's always packed with people. So, but when I was in another town, they have an evening program for young people at the library. So, and they'll maybe bring in a guitar player or a storyteller or some sort of show and tell or things like that. But it's a different program that they have. And so what I was able to get them funding for next year, about $15,000, which is like a lot of money for them. But in doing so, what I was able to do is get money for all of the libraries in my district. So there's also money for Westford. I know that I don't think anybody in Westford asked for the library money, but it was an opportunity, and I thought everybody would appreciate having that so that they could do maybe a program like that, particularly during the COVID-19 era. It probably would be good to have programs like that.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful, and I'm sure they appreciate what you could do for them. That's great. You're also involved in mattress recycling, which sounds kind of odd on the face of things, but then when you start thinking about the purpose of it, it makes so much sense.
It does make a lot of sense. It does seem like, something that maybe doesn't affect everybody, but it really does. So it's UTEC, which is a group throughout the Merrimack Valley. They do mattress recycling, so that if you have a mattress that you want to throw out, and you call them, they'll come and pick, and you put it out at the curb, they will come and pick that mattress up, and then they recycle it. And they've taken a lot of materials out of the landfill by doing this. And so, and I also know that the Commonwealth is considering just banning mattresses in landfills altogether. So I've got legislation that would help that along, and I'm still hopeful that we'll get that done. But it's more challenging now, just because we don't have. Because everything's done remotely, everything takes more time and is slower than it would be if we were meeting at the State House all the time. But I think everybody's dealing with that, and dealing with it in a good way. And so I'm hoping that we can do something with and get that legislation through and squared away.
Yeah, good luck with that. That I think it makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like a really good plan. We have just a little bit more. Well,
I think you had asked me about the rail trails, which is
Which I ride.
yes,
The
and
one
which
that,
I used to ride quite often, and I really like that Air to New Hampshire Rail Trail
yeah,
ride. It's very good, and I think better than it's a little bit more rural and scenic than some of the other rail trails, but that rail trail, for instance, I think it's called the Natural River Rail Trail, is about 20 years old now, and there's some wear and tear, and so what I was able to do is get a pretty good amount of money, about $650,000 for the maintenance of that trail. So hopefully, I'm not sure that will be enough to do the whole thing, but it will be enough to do quite a large segment of that trail. And I think that that's important. Going forward, as we create more and more rail trails, I mean, I think the Bruce Freeman Trail, for instance, is one that I think this year the Commonwealth is putting the bridge in across Route 2. And that eventually will end up going from Lowell all the way to Framingham. But as we increase the mileage on these rail trails and as they begin to age, we have to pay attention to having some money in there, putting money in the budget on a regular basis for maintenance. Mm-hmm. And I think if we do that, government doesn't always do this, but I do think that money that you spend on preventative maintenance is a lot better spent than deferred maintenance. And usually preventative maintenance is a lot less expensive than deferred maintenance. So anyways, there'll be money to take care of that part of the rail trail. And then, if we need more to do the rest of the trail, then we'll deal with that. But I think that the rail trail is popular. And I think one of the benefits of that rail trail is that, you can make the argument that it provides an alternative to get to the Ayer train station, commuter rail station. So, if you lived in Groton or Pepperell, rather than to take your car to Ayer for the train, you could, if you wanted to, could bike to Ayer, which would be better for you and better for everybody else.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. I wish I could bike somewhere. I enjoy that more than most of the athletic events. So there are a few other things that you're working on. One is, well, I guess this is maybe going a little slower than you wanted, but the shootings from the street into a house. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's all about? Public safety?
Yeah, that's a bill that's been filed for a couple of sessions now, but it's something that I think is important for Lowell and probably for other cities like Lowell. In preparing for the legislation, one of the things I did was I asked the Lowell police superintendent for a report, and the report that he gave me indicated that there were 96 shootings in Lowell in the past 5 years. That's a lot. That's more than, well more than one a month. And the problem with it is that the penalty, that the Commonwealth treats those shootings as if they were accidental. So the legislation is just a misdemeanor with a fine, and that's it. Because the original intent was that it would be hunters who would shoot and maybe would, by mistake end up shooting at a house. And if they did, then they could be fined. But what's happened in Lowell in those 96 cases, it was on purpose, and it's meant to be intimidating to someone. So it would be, you can imagine if someone would just drive up to your house randomly tonight at 10 or 11 o'clock and just start shooting at the house.
Yeah.
And nothing really bad has happened yet, but eventually one of those bullets is going to go through a window and it's going to end up killing a child. Yeah. And so it really should be a felony, and it is something that people should be outraged about. But so that's legislation that's in study now. But I did have a conversation with the state rep that co-sponsored it with me, and I am trying to get him to sort of shake it up on the House side. And if we can do that, then that would be great.
Who's the state rep?
We've got a few months. I'm sorry?
Who are you working with on this?
It's with Ratty Mom is the state rep from Lowell, who I've been working with on that. And, you know, if we fail, then I'll just refile it in January, and we'll just get going on it early on and try to be a little bit more, just a little bit better with it than we were this year.
Yeah, you'll get there. Small farmland, allowing, what is this, something about tax adjustment, or?
It's for urban farm areas. You know, in Lowell, there's a lot of little urban farms, and I think that they're popping up not just in Lowell, but in cities throughout the Commonwealth. We've got people that will just have, you know, just this, you know, maybe there's just an acre or so of land, but different residents can grow stuff there, and they're popping up. So this would just this would make it be that there would be a tax benefit for doing that. I know that when years ago when I was the mayor of Lowell, Mill City Grows was creating more and more small urban farms, and I can remember making the joke that what Mill City Grows was doing was turning Lowell into a agricultural community, one parcel at a time. So, which they're not really doing that, but they are becoming more and more popular.
Yeah.
And so that's what that legislation has to do with.
Well, I'm guilty because I've been last summer and the summer before I used Westford's community garden plot that they gave me to grow some food. So I'm part of that whole movement, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea, and I think it's good, and it's just a good social time. Maybe you found it to be that way as well. You know, where you end up meeting the other people that are growing stuff, and yeah.
Although I learned that the super moms they're there at 5:30 in the morning. I'd be there at 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm not an early riser. Last topic, and then, you know, I'll ask you if, you know, what else you want Westford to know, but your last topic, student loan debt, which really concerns me from a number of different levels. What can you say about student loan debt?
Not a tremendous amount, but I do think that there's a lot of concern about student loan debt. I'm hoping that we can do more than we did in this session, in the next session. I think it's something that has a big time negative impact on the economy. There's a lot of young families that are kind of tied down by student loan debt, which prevents the time that people get married. It prevents the time, you know, the age at which people buy a house, how big a house they can buy, and so forth and so on. So it has a really negative impact, and it's just grown so much. And in Massachusetts, we've gotten to a point, and I'm sure it's the same for other states too, but we've gotten to a point where there's 2 generations of student loan debt, so that, you know, the parents are still paying off their student loan debt, and then their children, which are in school now, they're incurring student loan debt or paying off theirs as well. So you've got 2 generations worth of student loan debt, and it's, you know, as you know, it's something that doesn't go away. If you declare bankruptcy or anything else, you still have student loan debt. But I think anything that we can do to ease that burden, at least on people, is worthwhile. And I think for those people that don't have student loan debt, what they should understand and appreciate is the fact that you're still helping the economy, and if you're helping the economy, that's helping everybody. So indirectly, even if you don't have student loan debt yourself, by providing aid or assistance to people that do have student loan debt, you're also helping yourself as well.
When you say providing aid, what do you mean? What can be done for these people?
Well, I think, you know, there's several different ideas. You could have it be that some states have got something where it's in Maine, for instance, they will pay once you get out of the school, out of a college in Maine. If you agree to stay and work in Maine, then they will pay off, I think it's $10,000 of your student loan debt, maybe every year. I don't think Massachusetts has the same problem, because Massachusetts, people like to be in Massachusetts. Not that they don't like to be in Maine, I don't mean to say that, but Maine's a little bit more remote and has a different, it's just a different, it's just different from Massachusetts. So people that go to school in Massachusetts, and there's a lot more schools in Massachusetts too, but people that go there a lot of them, I think, tend to stay in Massachusetts. So it's a little bit different, but there are different incentives that we could provide for employers that I think would be good at, and would help to reduce student loan debt. And I think, as much as we can do in anything that we can do, it just would be helpful to those people that have that debt. But I think overall, what everybody has to realize is it helps the economy.
I think I hope that when people are considering taking on a lot of student debt, that they realize that, life can throw a curveball. You may not always be healthy and able to work. So right. It's a situation where I think people need to think twice and be very careful and cautious before they take on the loan.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think that, in our area where we live, you can go to Middlesex Community College, for instance, for 2 years, and then transfer to ULowell. And you can get a bachelor's degree for about $30,000, which right. That's great. And then if you want to go to a more prestigious graduate school, then I think, that's fine. That's something that you could do. But a lot of times, if you do that, you can get your employer to pay for that, because it's a benefit to them as well. But I think that's something for people to consider, and certainly that makes getting a college degree a lot more affordable for people. But dealing with the student loan debt that's already been incurred and that's being incurred right now is something that I think definitely has to get done, and we have to be better at. And once again, I think that for people that don't have any student loan debt, what they've got to realize is that there's indirect benefits to them as well.
Well, that about wraps up all of the topics I had, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell Westford and beyond anything you'd like to let them know.
Well, I guess I'd just like to say that, we do have several pieces of legislation that are in conference committee in addition to the transportation bond bill. There's a healthcare bill, there's a climate change bill, and economic development bill that are all important bills, and it will make a change in everybody's life. And then maybe the next time that I come on your show, those will be out of conference committee, and we'll be able to talk about those at that time.
Well, I can't wait for that.
Neither can I.
So is there anything else you want to say to Westford before we close?
I would just want to say that this has been a challenging first term for me. I've greatly enjoyed being the state senator from the 1st Middlesex District. What I like about my district is that it is it's pretty heterogeneous in that I've got, an urban community, I've got suburban communities like Westford, and then I've got rural communities as well. So, I belong to several different groups, caucuses, including the Gateway Cities Caucus, but I also belong to the Rural Caucus, which is for, basically for farming communities and so forth. So, and that's enjoyable too. And it's helped me to realize that, the Commonwealth it's a pretty compact state, but we've got a lot of different people with a lot of different interests. And I've really enjoyed serving in the Senate for this term, and I'm really looking forward to the next term as well.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for championing for us all out there. And until we meet again in a few months, thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joyce.
For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Pellino Crane.